All right, let's get into it. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of diplomacy's most powerful secret weapons, a tool that gets used in the shadows when all the normal doors between countries have slammed shut.
So let's start with a puzzle. Think about it. You've got two rival nations. They are completely at odds. There are no embassies, no one's picking up the phone, but a crisis is brewing. So, how do they actually talk to each other? Well, the answer lies in a kind of shadow diplomacy. And that's where something called a special mission comes in. The best way to think about it is like a pop-up embassy. It's not permanent, it has one very specific job to do. Maybe it's to free a prisoner or just to secretly test the waters for peace talks. And it's absolutely critical when all the formal channels are frozen solid. Now, you might think something this important would have a super clear rule book, right? Well, people tried. Back in 1969, there was a big meeting, the New York Convention, where they tried to write down all the rules for how these missions should work. The key word there, though, is tried, because that's how many countries have actually signed on to that convention. 39. That's it. So what does that tell you? It means that most of this incredibly high-stakes, back-channel stuff is running on unwritten rules, on old traditions and customs, which means the most important decision of all is who you decide to send.
Right, so if the rule book is basically gathering dust, what actually matters? The people, the players. So let's take a look at the cast of characters leaders can choose from, because it's not always the pinstripe-suited diplomat you might be picturing. We can basically sort all these envoys into four main boxes. It really all comes down to two simple questions. First, are they high-level and influential, or are they more of a low-level operator? And second, are they officially part of the government, or are they a complete outsider? Okay, let's start with a really interesting one, the personal envoy. This is literally a leader's buddy, a close friend, or top political ally. Think about the message that sends. If a president sends their best friend to another country, it's a powerful way of saying, hey, this isn't just business. I am personally invested in this. And here's a perfect example of that in action. The British Prime Minister Tony Blair had his close friend Lord Levy jetting all over the world more than 100 times. And Blair was super clear about why. He said it himself. It was all about signaling his personal interest. I mean, this guy was so committed, he apparently even paid for his own travel. That's how you know it's personal. All right, now let's go to the other end of the spectrum, the private envoy. This is someone completely outside the government bubble. Maybe a famous academic or a well-connected business person. And their biggest asset, their superpower, it's a huge one, plausible deniability. If the mission blows up in their face or gets leaked, the government can just throw up its hands and say, that guy? Nope, no idea who he is. It's the ultimate diplomatic escape hatch. And then, of course, you have what's probably the most common type, the official envoy. These are the pros. We're talking senior diplomats, military generals, people who live and breathe this stuff. They carry all the authority of a leader, but with the discipline of a professional. They're way less likely to go off script, which makes them the safe, reliable choice. But what happens when the mission is so sensitive, so risky, that you need a whole other level of specialist? Well, that's when you send in a spy. So why a spy? I mean, it sounds like something out of a movie, right? But it actually makes perfect sense. For one, these intelligence officers often have experience working under diplomatic cover in embassies already. They're trained for really intimidating, high-pressure situations. And crucially, when you send your top spy, who do you think they're going to meet? Their top spy. You get right to the real power players, especially when you need to contact groups outside of formal governments. And this isn't just a wild theory. It absolutely happens. Take 2014. The US had a huge problem. 2 American citizens were imprisoned in North Korea. So who did they send to get them back? Not a diplomat. They sent the top spy in the entire country, James Clapper, the director of national intelligence. The signal was unmistakable. This isn't about politics. It's about one thing and one thing only. And you know what? It worked. Okay, so you've picked your envoy. Now you've got another massive decision to make. Do you do this in the dead of night, completely off the books, or do you call up the news cameras and turn it into a public spectacle? And man, this is a really tough call, a huge strategic trade-off. If you keep it secret, you're protecting the mission. You stop your rivals or even your own domestic opponents from trying to sink it. And, if it fails, no one has to know. You avoid that public embarrassment. But going public has its own advantages.
It can grant a kind of legitimacy to a state that the world doesn't officially recognize. It shows everyone you're serious. For a textbook case of going secret, you can't do better than Henry Kissinger's first trip to China back in '71. President Nixon knew that if word of the mission got out, anti-communist hardliners back home would go ballistic and do everything they could to kill it. Total secrecy was the only way it could have ever succeeded. But on the flip side, think about states that are often treated like outcasts, like North Korea. For them, a public mission is pure gold. When a big shot American official shows up and the cameras are flashing, it's a huge propaganda win. It tells the world, hey, look at us, we're important, we're players you have to deal with. It gives them a status they desperately crave. So, let's bring this all together. When you step back and look at the big picture, why does all this shadow diplomacy, why do these special missions matter so much? Well, here's what it boils down to. Special missions are this incredibly flexible, totally essential diplomatic tool, especially when two countries just are not on speaking terms. We've seen that who you send, whether it's your best friend or your top spy, is a powerful message in itself, and the choice between secrecy and publicity is a massive strategic gamble. At the end of the day, these are the back channels that can stop wars before they start and bring prisoners home. So here's my final thought for you. The next time you see a headline flash across your screen about a special envoy heading to some global hotspot, are you going to see just a simple visit? Or are you going to see what it really is, a calculated, high-stakes move in a global chess match that never, ever stops?